You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audiobook club. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Graphic Novel Explorers Club. I'm one of your hosts, Francis Preziosi, joined by
Dennis Superchana
and
Jay Fleazy.
Today we will be discussing Generations by Italian artist Flavia Biondi. We hope you have already read today's title because all three of us have read the book and we will be discussing it, so beware, spoilers ahead. We would love for you to share your opinion and thoughts on our social media. Twitter is at GN Explorers Club, on Facebook, or email us at gnexplorersclub@gmail.com. Graphic Novel Explorers Club is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever podcasts are available. So today we will be discussing Generations, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name. I think it's Flavia Biondi?
Flavia.
Flavia.
You're Italian.
Biondi.
You should...
Yeah,
I know.
come on.
Flavia Biondi.
Don't do that.
It's a me,
So-
a Mario.
So backstory on this comic book is I went to a local comic book store, Oblivion, during my lunch break. And I was looking around and judging a book by its cover, this comic book stood out to me because it's just white and there's a lot of like black and gray characters in the background that are drawn. And there's one man in color and his shirt says, "Leave Britney alone."
And it's pink. Generations, the title's written in pink.
Yes. And then you flip it to the back and all it says is, "Auntie B says we're all apples and families are like trees heavy with fruit. When we're ripe, we just fall off and leave." So, oh, there we go. Thank you. Sorry. So this book was also sealed in plastic, so I knew nothing else about it. So that really intrigued me.
Oh, like sealed? So you
Yeah, I couldn't even.
flip through
So I asked the guy working, and he's like, "Well, let's look it up," because like, I never heard of this either. So I read the description. It's about this guy in the South who's homosexual, and his father kind of disowns him at some point when he comes out.
South of Italy.
Well, no, let me get to that. So it just said it is in the South.
Oh.
It's like in the South. So, because you are correct. Sorry, it is south of Italy. So he's like, "Oh, it's in the South," and his father's really conservative, and like he has to go home again. Like, so he leaves home, but for some reason 3 years later, this guy has no job. He has to go home, but he refuses to stay with his dad. So I was like, "Oh, I want to read this."
So you're thinking like a Southern tale, like
Yes.
okay.
So then I open it up and come to find out it's actually written by an Italian woman, which I thought was interesting that she's writing about a gay man's perspective. Because if it was flipped or reversed, I would be offended. I'm just saying, like, honestly, like a man shouldn't write about me, but
But
yeah.
I mean, writers write about things that aren't like George Lucas never went into outer space.
That's a good
long,
point,
long
yeah.
time ago. Like,
Well, then I found out, so this is set in southern Italy. She's Italian, and this is her fourth graphic novel, published in her native Italy. And this is apparently the first book to be published in English. So when I started reading it, at first I didn't realize that because I never read the covers. You guys know that I don't read the covers. And I was like, where is this set at? But I really, as I started going through it, I really liked it. So the guy... as I said, it starts off, he's just back home with his aunties. And there's 3 aunts and an elderly grandmother in this house.
And you get the impression that he failed somehow, or he's coming home with like his tail tucked between his legs.
Yeah.
He definitely seems like the kind of kid who wanted out of a small town and is forced to come back to his podunk town.
And most of his family is very welcoming. Oh, and to top it off, one of his cousins who was pregnant and her husband left her or didn't marry her is also living there.
I never got the impression that they stated specifically if she was married or was it a boyfriend or a one night stand.
They didn't, yeah, but
she's just
no
pregnant.
matter what. Well, she's pregnant. There's no man. It's shame.
Yeah,
it's shame to the Catholic family.
and this
Right.
is for the listener. This is set in modern times.
Yes, good point.
Hence the leave Britney alone. So maybe even 10 years ago. It's so it's a
point.
fairly modern story.
Yeah. So 2 of his aunties are very happy to have him home, and this other auntie, I don't remember her name right now.
Auntie A, Auntie B, Auntie C.
Auntie B's the one who's not so happy.
Yeah,
Okay,
Auntie B's very strict and
I
stern.
think her name's actually Bruna or Bruna.
Yeah,
So
which is oh, never mind. I was gonna say bruja is Spanish, and probably the Latin derivative is very close for witch.
She seemed like it.
Well, so like when she first gets there, she's like, where is he going to sleep? We already have too many mouths to feed. And I took her more as like the very economical and realistic one, where the other ones were like, it's going to work out. Don't worry. Give him a break, you know. So what's funny is, yeah, he kind of comes home with his tail between his legs. He says he doesn't want to let his father know he's there yet. And tomorrow he's going to figure out what he's going to do. And the next like 6 panels is him slowly just sleeping away the day, looking out the window. Time is passing. You don't know how many months have passed, but it's been a while. And he hasn't even left the house, really. He's just really wallowing in his failure. He's done no plan. He's not trying to get a job.
And did you say already he's staying at his grandmother's house?
Yeah, the grandma lives there too.
Yeah.
Nan.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Right, and so just to clarify, the family doesn't know exactly why he's back in town. They assume he went to Milan to study university.
That's what the dad
which
said.
is what the dad said.
Yeah.
But and so they assume that he's back because he failed. He dropped out of classes, which in
He
fact,
goes along with the lie a little
right.
bit.
But it's pretty clear that
The cousin sees right through it.
right, and he didn't actually go to Milan for university. It revealed later what his purpose was.
he went there for a man. We can
Okay,
say,
well, I didn't want
Yeah.
to spoil anything you were going to say.
Oh, no. Oh, well, thank you. After you guys have both interrupted repeatedly.
He's a gay homosexual.
Oh, he's not a straight homosexual?
I think
Thank
if
you.
you're a gay homosexual, that means you're
Thank you for
straight.
clarifying.
It's just like that.
Well, this is
South
going to
Park
come
would
up.
always say that.
Yeah, so he went to go live with this man who appears to be older than him. So somehow that relationship kind of fell out. But he wanted to go to the city and make something of himself. But you never really know why that relationship kind of fell out. And he never really made, I'm getting ahead of it, but he never
Well,
really made anything of himself in
I'm
Milan.
going to disagree with you. He didn't go there. He went there for the man. He never went there to make something of himself. He went there just to like get out of his small town. This is the impression I got.
No, but he thought he would make something of himself when he was there in
he
the big
thought
city.
something would happen.
Right.
And it turned out he just like lived off this older man who must have some sort of financial success because he was basically just a stay-at-home boyfriend.
So I was really worried about him at this point because
As this truth starts to come out about him.
right, because he talks about how he met this guy on the internet only, and then they would talk to each other, and the guy is 9 years older, so he goes to town. He basically wants to live with the guy. He's full in his head that he can make him some kind of life, like you said, in Milan. And I'm worried that this guy's like some weird creepo. I don't know what's going to happen later on in the story. And I assumed, and like you said, he basically didn't do anything in Milan except for be this guy's boyfriend.
Yeah. I never got worried about him there. It didn't, because there was no like, throughout this whole story, there's no sort of menace. It's just a young man or kid trying to find out what his role is in life.
Yeah, so when he's at the house, the Aunt B is still like getting really irritated because he's not doing anything, and the family's like, you need to back off, give him some time. She's like, he's had time. So they fired the grandmother's personal assistant, or like live-in nurse. Or
Yeah, she's a Polish lady.
She is. Thank you. We'll get to that. So
I'm just saying.
like fact checking every. Anyway,
We got to do it with you though,
yeah.
Francis.
Oh my god. So that
ahead.
comes up. So he has to start taking care of his grandmother, and the nurse, I forget her name, she kind of shows him what to do and how to do it, and like the grandmother has to like help wipe her and put on her compression socks and stroll her around, and he goes out with there's another like assistant that lives there.
He's
the
an
guy,
actual nurse.
Francesco, I think
Yeah,
is his
and
name.
he's like the nurse that reports back to the doctor what her
That's
physical
right, okay.
conditions are.
Right, so the Polish lady is just the caretaker.
Yeah.
And then I think they unceremoniously kind of let her go.
Yeah,
Right.
Because I think Aunt B is the one showing how, like, look, you're going to have to change Grandma's, like, I think Depends and all this other
Yeah,
stuff.
get her on the toilet because she poops in front of the
Yeah.
kid.
Right.
So anyway, the two guys go out for coffee one day. The guy who's living at home and the male nurse.
Who I thought
And
was Wolverine.
I don't know why I'm talking. So the Polish nurse, as you guys want to call her, came up to him and was like really upset. Like, hey, it's not okay, that I got fired because of you, and you better treat her right. And it's a lot more difficult than it looks. And as he starts taking care of his grandmother, he kind of starts growing up a little bit. Like, at first, he's really scared he's going to run into some people from high school or people he used to know because he hasn't amounted to anything. But then it starts... Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and I got the impression he was almost repulsed by his grandmother's age and frailty. Like, he was somewhat put off by it.
I didn't get that because
in an immature kind of way.
Yeah, but even when he did have to help her go to the bathroom, she's like, "Oh, it takes me a while." He's like, "It's okay, Grandma. Like, don't worry."
Yeah.
I would agree with Francis. I felt he was doing it from a loving perspective. I think he was more embarrassed, like she said. But now that I'm a man saying it, it's more legitimate.
Yeah, welcome to my world. They're laughing because they know it's not true.
Thank you for clarifying that. But he's more embarrassed that this is what he's amounted to, which is basically being his grandmother's caretaker. He's not even getting paid for this. It's basically room and board.
That's specifically what the Aunt B says.
Like, that's all you're getting. And it's funny because there's this one scene, and I just lost it. Like, he gets home from taking care of her one day, and the aunt was like, "Oh, I brought home the special, dish." And Aunt B's like, "Why would you spend money on that? I told you to get
it was like a special pork dish."
And there's like a little asterisk to explain what the dish is, and I really liked that.
She brought home a chicken dish.
Nope, it was pork.
Oh, it was pork.
I'm going to correct you.
Okay, but she wanted her to bring home
pork chops,
I guess,
because they're cheaper.
Yeah,
right.
A cheaper dish.
And I'm looking. I just had it, but I lost it with little asterisks. But this is just like how sensible Aunt B is, and they're all living off of someone's dead husband's pension.
Yeah. So Auntie A's husband, who apparently died, Gigi, his pension. And that's kind of a common joke they bring up about how, thank goodness, they have Gigi's pension to live off of.
So I might get the order a little bit wrong here. You guys now can jump in if you want. So what happens is the grandmother... No, not yet. Okay. We're not there yet. So what happens is one night somehow he gets... the male nurse gives him access to his computer. So he FaceTimes or Skypes his ex-boyfriend or some friends from
One of
Milan.
his friends, yeah.
And his aunt overhears him, and she learns or discovers that he's actually homosexual. And the aunt becomes really furious. And you don't see it because the door is still closed. So he's talking to his friends via the internet, and he's explaining the hardship. And the aunt...
Auntie B.
Yeah, Auntie B, the mean one. She goes and calls his dad and was like, "You need to come get your son." So...
And it's funny. I will say that at first I was a bit confused because Auntie B, of all of them, seemed to never have a relationship. So I thought maybe she was closeted.
I didn't even think of that.
And so I thought she had sympathy. And so she overheard him Skyping with his friend. And he makes some kind of joke about his ass and like that's all he was good for. And I thought she overheard him. And was concerned, like, look, I don't want you to go down the path where I'm ashamed of who I am. And so I thought she called the dad, I think his name was Danilo, to get your son, not to get him out of here because he's a bum, but because, look, you need to face the fact that your son is gay and you need to move on and accept him, etc. That's what I was reading into it. But there was no context, so I just assumed that. And then, of course... something else happens.
So he gets off the phone with his friends, and his cousin comes into the room, and they start talking, and then all of a sudden the dad knocks on the door, and he refuses to open it, and he does not want to open up the door. And then the aunt starts selling these things like, "It's not natural what you're doing, go home with your father, I don't want you here." And the dad is like, "Son, just open up the door, like, it's okay, just let me in." And the son freezes. He's like, "Don't open it." He tells his cousin and then the aunt's just really yelling these really nasty things. And the dad says, he's like, "Stop, don't talk about my son that way." So I got confused here because I wasn't sure. They never really say what the blowout was between him and his father. It's implied throughout the book that the son came out to the father as being homosexual and something happened, and that's why the son left. But I saw this moment as his dad was defending his son. Like, "That's my son. You're not going to call him these horrible names." And maybe 3 years later, maybe he's had time to kind of process it, and maybe he's realized it wasn't like a fad or something, or he just has a love for his son. But the sad thing was, you discover. So the dad ends up leaving. He just leaves.
Well, the son says, "Dad, please leave. I will talk to you later about this." I wanted, because the son wanted to.
I was getting there.
Oh, sorry. Well, go ahead. Get there.
Well, okay, don't interrupt me. So it comes to find out, the son didn't want to approach his dad that way because he didn't have anything to be proud of. He wanted to make something of himself, and he wanted to talk to his dad in his own way and not in that environment. This was a shameful environment. It was his dad was having to defend him, and I think he wanted to show he can defend himself. He's established, and he didn't have that. So there's still a sense like he feels like a failure to his father in his father's eyes. He has nothing to show his father. Was that what you were gonna?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. And I'll go ahead.
I got two things. One, leading up to this scene, which is kind of the tragedy, is that Matteo, the main character, did we?
No, we have not said his name yet.
Yeah, sorry, I just call him the son.
Matteo is talking with Sarah, his cousin, and they're playing cards, and he's talking about how this is his dream scenario. Look, I want to come back to Dad and show him that I'm a man, that I've actually grown. And I think he feels proud of like the accomplishments he's made with Nan, and like how he's kind of grown into personally. He's doing laundry, that kind of stuff. And just then, that's when his dad shows up because of Auntie B, and interrupts basically his master plan of showing up as becoming a man. And I think, going back to your point, Francis, I think they kind of detail basically why he left and why they had a fight was, Matteo wanted to leave suddenly to go to Milan, and the dad, and basically he dropped two things on his dad, I think, all at once. I'm gay, and I'm leaving the house.
For an older man.
That
was the
So
other.
I think, maybe his dad had misgivings about his homosexual lifestyle. I'm not sure, but maybe part of it also got mixed up in his message, where it's like, well, you're leaving for this stranger. I have no idea where you're going. You're just a kid. You don't know what you're talking about. So not so much like you don't know that you're homosexual, more like you're going to the big city to some stranger you met on the internet.
Yeah, that was the impression I got was,
right.
Kid, you're doing something very stupid and dangerous.
And drastic.
Yeah.
And so they had a falling out.
I mean, they don't say this in the book, but it's in Italy. I'm sure there's a lot of Catholicism, and it is a sin, not in my opinion, even though I am Catholic, but to the church. So I still think for his father, and especially how the aunt reacted, even if he didn't feel shame towards his son, he knew the stigma that was going to happen when you live in such a religious state.
Yeah, that's the impression I got too. The impression I got was all of this was in Matteo's head about his dad. The dad never
makes more sense.
The dad never had a chance to say, "Son, what you're doing is an abomination to our church," or "That's fine, son. I'm happy that you figured out what you are." Like he never gave his dad the benefit of the doubt.
He just assumed you're a small town dad.
Yeah.
You're going to hate me because of the Catholic Church. And truth be told, I feel like the family more or less would be accepting. The other aunts were totally cool with Matteo.
Even the grandma Nana was fine.
Aunt B was the only one who
she flips out.
Yeah, she starts becoming a Bible thumper, but the other aunts, I think, call her out. It's like, you're only like doing this in your convenience. Most of the time, you aren't even like this.
And this parallels what I don't know if you were. And I apologize if I'm jumping ahead. If you were going to get to this,
no, you're good.
Was Nana did something very similar to Auntie A when she got pregnant out of wedlock,
right,
with the cousin, and I guess their relationship, unlike the dad and the son, which was the son's doing, I guess I should say, Nana and the other aunt who had a daughter out of wedlock,
cousin Sarah,
their relationship got very strained.
And I don't even think they talk to each other.
Well, yeah, and there's a beautiful scene, because I was going to hit on this, so I'm glad you brought this up, where Auntie A, she has the moped, she has the only type of transportation, and she takes her mom on a ride just to get her mom to talk to her. And the mom finally says, like, yes. And that's going to come up later in the story. But she finally was able to, like, have that moment with her mom, just her and her mom on the scooter. And
I think that's
just
Auntie
to be
C,
free.
by the way.
Oh, it's Auntie C?
No.
It's one of the aunties.
No, it's not. No, it's not Auntie C.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because look at this is not Auntie C.
Pretty sure if you go to the beginning,
I swear to God.
you go to the beginning when they introduce all the ants.
done.
She's gonna kill both of us.
When you go to the beginning where they introduce all the ants, they label them all.
Anti-ABC.
This is not Auntie C. She
That
is
is
cute.
Auntie C.
Okay, let's move on. One of the aunties had a daughter out of wedlock.
Oh, damn it. It's
And
Auntie
it's-
C. Son of a B. It is Auntie C.
Son of an Auntie B, it's Auntie C.
Sorry.
Okay, no, you're right. Why is she so cute here and then she got so ugly? Well, that's
Well,
what
what
happened.
Yeah,
You're
it's
bitter.
called age. Called aging.
So this is cute though. So like after he's brought out because of the aunt, like later on they're like kind of watching TV.
Like a Bachelor kind of show.
Yeah, and the other aunt, one of the aunties, not Auntie C, was like, so that male nurse, she's like, is it true? And he's like, yeah. She's like, well, that male nurse is pretty cute, right? Like she's trying to like encourage him, like talk to him, like, hey, there's some cute guys. But then come to find out, the male nurse and the pregnant cousin, they start kind of dating.
He has
kinda
a,
asks-
He has a crush on
Matteo definitely has a crush on Francesco that comes to Francesco, the male nurse, is just being genuinely wants to be friends with Matteo.
Yeah.
He's very accepting.
And not only accepting, but super helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe he offers to pay for bartending school.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of comes into. We read another book, Everything is Flammable, and we talked about how where are these friends who are helping out,
Right, yeah.
helping out this gal. But it comes out a couple times, like Matteo, when he's talking to someone on the phone, it's like, can you re-upload my phone? So I think he has a friend who's helping him with his self-service.
Yeah.
Then he has Francesco, who offers to pay for his bartending school and lends him his laptop.
Yep.
And so in both cases, these people have very fortunate, or they're fortunate to have very generous
Actually,
friends.
you know, now that you've brought up Everything is Flammable, this book, when you picked this out, Francis, I thought you had almost picked this out on purpose as a parallel to Everything is Flammable, because both characters seem very incompetent, and that's what I thought. I was like, oh, these are two.
Well, we'll get to there because I do want to
Right.
talk about that. I didn't realize he was going to be so incompetent I thought it was going to mirror my life, but it didn't. But we'll get to there.
Thank goodness you weren't like him.
Yeah. So during this time, he decides to go back to Milan for a few days to like blow over some steam, and he ends up going back to his old boyfriend. And they kind of reconnect, and they have like all this sex for like a few days. But he starts doing the things for the boyfriend they never did before, like brings him breakfast in bed, is more attentive, and the boyfriend. I don't know any names in this story, sorry, but it's just boyfriend. But he was like, wow, you've really changed, you know? And he's like, he plans on staying there for a while, but then he gets the call. Nan is really, really sick. She's in the hospital. So he doesn't really want to go, but he does go because he wants to see his Nan.
I'm going to interrupt for just a second.
What? I'm shocked.
I got the impression that Matteo went up there to have closure.
Right.
Oh,
And
maybe,
then-
okay, that's probably
And then
what
when he
did.
was there,
I'm 3 drinks into this.
this is our drunk episode.
Yes.
I've had 4 beers tonight. And,
Just 2 for me.
And that Matteo went up there to like close everything out and confront, for lack of a better word, the boyfriend that dumped him. And
Well, and show him that he had matured.
yeah, he had matured. And then they wound up falling in love all over again. And Matteo, the boyfriend's like, I want you to stay. Please stay. I made a mistake. I was too judgmental and harsh in my decision. I want you to stay. And Matteo says, I would love to do that, but I have responsibilities and duties back home, and I can't, and I don't want to stay right now. I know you may find somebody else before I can come back, but I have found responsibilities in my hometown that I need to complete, and if you can wait for me, great. If you can't, just know
That's
that
right.
I loved you and we had a great 3 years together.
Well, yeah, because he even says, he was like, 3 years ago, I blamed my dad, you know, and I ran off. And then 6 months ago, I blamed you. So I ran
Yeah.
off back home. And he's like, now, like, I'm tired of running and I'm going to stay with my family and, you know,
Until,
work that out.
until Nana passes.
Yeah, and
well,
it
he
was
doesn't
very.
say that.
No, but it's implied, because
Right.
Nana's dying, that it's like, I need to go back home for that.
I was really reassured at this point, whatever his name is, boyfriend, that he wasn't a super creep.
El Wolverino.
Right, yeah.
He wasn't like a super creep internet guy. I thought he was going to be
He's
abusive.
actually really cute.
Or someone that like preys on younger
He seemed like he was totally
partner.
stable, and he was probably his.
Well, that's how all internet relationships work out.
Why are you looking at me like that, Francis?
He's just happily married for 20 years. How long have you guys been together?
15? 20.
Is it really?
We haven't been married that long, but we've been.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But yeah, he was he seemed like a very stable guy, very
We've
responsible.
been together for like 11 or 12. When did we
Wait
meet?
that out.
11 years.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? But so he seemed like an actually good guy, and he was accepting of Matteo's decision.
Like he just wanted Matteo to grow up.
Right. Well, and then you saw his perspective. In many ways, it's like Matteo was just basically being a lazy stay-at-home person.
Yeah.
And not even like a good housewife, so to speak. I think he brings something like that up. It's just basically he would whine because his boyfriend had to go to work. And
he wasn't paying enough attention to him because they have responsibilities.
Right. And he was trying to pay bills and do whatever his career is.
Yeah.
And Matteo was just basically staying home and spending the money and everything like that.
So he goes back.
Matteo.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that was good. I stopped listening. But
Hopefully the listeners is in it.
yeah. So he goes back, and the grandmother's in the hospital, and he sees his dad, and he tells his dad, like, I'm sorry. And the dad's like really upset. He's like, she's old. He's like, yes. So he starts like helping the family. And
this is one of my favorite seasons.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I cried.
Okay, well, let me get there.
The last half of this book.
Yeah.
I was fucking in tears.
So it starts kind of showing like the grandmother's in the hospital, or Nan, and the things that Matteo's trying to do to kind of help the family and all the little things, and they're trying to keep the vigil and make the grandmother very comfortable. And that's when Matteo realizes, he's like, I never stopped to listen to my father. I never thought, I just ran off from him. I didn't realize what he had to say. And this was hard because he's seeing his dad cry for the first time because his mother is so old. And this is where I started getting emotional. So, and now you guys can interject after this sentence. So the grandmother's in a lot of pain. She's in the bed. She's like, where am I? Where am I? And then Auntie C, apparently, she climbs into bed with her and she holds her mom. She's like, Mom, you're with me. We're on the moped. Like, can't you feel it? Can't you feel it? We're on the beach. The wind is in our hair. I'm getting sad right now.
I know. I'm starting to tear up.
Yeah.
This was so beautifully done. It was so touching. Like it. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the art, or?
No, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But
Once
just
you finish here.
Yeah.
But like and she like climbs in and wraps her mom like if she was on the moped.
Oh, like for the handlebars? Yeah.
And I just like, it was, Dennis and I are the same age. We'll be 43 this year. We're a couple months away from our...
old.
And, but what the point I'm bringing up is we're probably literally halfway through our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know, Dennis's dad passed away many years ago. Mm-hmm. My dad's in his 60s. And it like the weight of my age came out in this book. I was just like, fuck, this is like, and like they show drawings of his dad, who's the youngest. I didn't know this in the book, but it's shown in the illustration. The dad is the youngest, and then the three sisters going up at an angle.
It's like an evolutionary.
Yeah,
well, it's not there,
almost.
So what happens is it starts the funeral scene. It's the family behind the car.
Yeah.
And then it shows like what it was like for Nan when she was little, and she has all the kids, like you're saying, in the line with her, and she's holding her son's hand because he is the youngest.
Yeah, and but like this whole last section, just the weight of how quickly we move through life, and like in the illustrations, it shows. Francis is on the page of like all the family photos over the years, from when they're very young to when they're adults, and marriages and kids being born, and it just the weight of how short we are on this earth and how precious relationships and friendships and family are with each other. It's so beautifully done at the end of this book.
Yeah.
It overwhelmed me with like emotion. I was just like, I read this in my break room at work, and I was just like, I'm like in the corner with my head turned, bawling my eyes out, quietly, trying not to bring attention to myself, crying over this book.
So I'll read this last page, and then I want to hear your input. So it says, so he's kind of going through this monologue, like they're following the hearse, and he goes back to the house, and he's looking at the photos, and he sees how much love Nan had for her children, and he says, we're all here in these photographs, on these walls, in this house, an endless constellation made of all of us. Dad, I've seen life. Like a tree growing from the ground, I've seen the first leaves, the roots, the fruits. I saw that heavy apple so ripe, it broke the branch. And the breaking of the branch is like she's going back to heaven.
Right,
and like
becoming part of the earth.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is, so when I read the back of this book, when it talks about like when we're ripe, we just fall off and leave. I thought that was just like you grow up and you leave your parents.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't get like how far it was going to go. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on here.
No. I wanted you to finish. No, yeah, much like Johnny, this half of the book really affected me. Not to go into too much detail, but my dad did die, and the hospital scenes mirrored a lot of what was going on with my family in terms of just little things where you would take care of him and feed him and talk to him, and taking shifts and such was really mirrored my experience. And
just trying to make him comfortable at
right,
the end.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to, as an adult, you don't think, well, I'm going to lay next to my parent. That's weird, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something very comforting when your parent is on those last legs to kind of almost be like a kid and comfort them.
Like your roles reversed.
Right, exactly. And yeah, anyway, it was a very emotional. You can hear in my voice now.
Yeah.
It rung very true to me in terms of a parent who's on that journey, and as a child of theirs, to kind of take care of them at that point in their life.
What I thought was really beautiful too, and thank you for sharing that. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
Dennis,
not
that was
easy.
beautiful.
Yeah, but so Auntie C, who I was corrected as Auntie C, and her mom obviously didn't have a good relationship, but it didn't matter at the end. Like she was going to be there for her mom because her mom was there when she was little, and that rang true to me. Like I've said in previous episodes, I don't have the best relationship with my mom, but like I remember when she was in the hospital and had surgery, and like I went in and I painted her nails just because I wanted her to feel pretty. Like, I mean, I did a crap job, and she like corrected me when I was doing it, and I was like, oh my God.
This is why I don't have a relationship with you, Mom.
But it's like at the end of the day, like no matter what, you're family and you're going to be there. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happened 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago. And so then it turns, after that scene, it kind of gets much more lighthearted. There's like commotion in the house, and Mateo's like, Dad's here. And like everyone's like piled in the car, and Auntie C's like, how are we going to pay for this? And because the cousin's in labor, and she goes to give birth, and the nurse is there, and I think they're like finally established as a relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so they're all surrounding the baby now. It's like, we'll be there this time, Auntie, all of us. Like they're all going to be there to support this little baby, and they're going to be this baby's like support system and network. And it kind of hits the circle of life, and then it flashes back to like, it shows like the little baby kind of like growing up.
It's like a future montage.
Yeah, it's like the thing that I got is the 2 pages that this spans this little girl from birth to
it is a little girl, huh?
probably
I don't know if you
right.
probably to early
like 5
adolescence.
Right.
Yeah, like it reinforced how quickly we move through life,
right,
and how precious it is, and that again the branch broke, and one apple ended, the tree ended, but this new apple is growing a new tree.
Right, yeah.
And that's what it was so beautifully done.
Right.
Yeah, so at first, the first half of the book, so right away, I was very much into the book, even though it's kind of like, I don't know if the story, I don't know how good the story is. Like, and again, it didn't say like, I don't know, it didn't say like why he left Milan or like he never accomplished anything. But yeah, this last third of the book, I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, and it's so true, and it really hit home. So when I was 19, when I was 18, actually, I joined the military, and 2 months later, I got kicked out. And I had to go back home to Amador. And
so for the listeners, she had a major cocaine problem.
I still do. No. So I moved to Sacramento, I got it together, moved to Sacramento, and then something happened. I forget, but I ended up losing my job and I had to go back home. And I was 21. That's right. I was 21 at the time. And I was 20. And it was the most self-defeating thing. I was like, oh my God, I have to go back to this hick town, Amador, with my tail between my legs. I never thought I would be here. People have left. I'm still living at home with my mother. I'm such a loser. I have no plan. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be stuck here forever. I'm not. I'm back in Sacramento.
Isn't it funny when you're that age how fatalistic you are about time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
20.
remember,
You're supposed to fail at 20.
I remember when I got to my first command. And I was like, you'll be leaving here in 1994. And I was like, oh my God, I'll be 22. Wait, when I get out of the military, I'll be 24. I'm like, what the fuck do you... I'll be old. I'm like, what do you do? That's how young I was. I thought 24 would be old. And I was just like, what do you do with your life after 24? It was such a... It was like a major math problem that the normal brain cannot figure out.
And the military takes care of some basics for you, so you don't have to worry about that.
So you don't just die in a gutter.
Yeah. So when you are out on your own, you're like, crap, now what? How do I so to go back to your original question a while ago, sorry, I'm salty this episode. I love you guys. I picked up this book not so much as the antithesis of Everything is Flammable. I really thought, oh, this is a kid who tried to make it on his own and didn't. And because of the Britney shirt, I thought this was going to be early 2000s. So I thought I was going to relate to it more that way. As I started reading it, the first 5 pages in, I was like, oh, I don't relate to this at all, but I still really like it. And I was like, oh, this is in Italy. I was like, that's interesting, but I still really liked it. So I kept with it. But it is an interesting antithesis to Everything is Flammable, which I didn't realize. It is... He's not suffering from mental illness. He's just stuck.
Yeah.
And she was stuck too, but for mental illness reasons. And I think I'm starting to I think just every child has kind of an odd relationship with their parent, maybe. By the time they reach adulthood, I don't think it's so abnormal.
You get to that point in your life where I am diametrically different from my mom as far as political views. There's many things there's some similarities, but there's many things I do not agree with her. But you get to that point where you feel almost guilty and burdened by leaving whatever their views or perspectives are, and lifestyle. Even sometimes, him being a gay man, his perception was, my dad's not going to accept me. His dad seemed sort of like a guy's guy. He's wearing flannels. He's got a beard. And
what happened to his mom? Did they ever say why his wife wasn't in the picture?
No. It just I got the impression she either passed away when he was young or left.
Okay.
But I got the impression she passed away.
Right, because there was never I wish mom would come back, or I'm going to find my mom kind of thing. She was just definitely not on the earth kind of thing.
I got the impression she passed away. But there's the leaving the nest, and for a complicated, humans are complicated, and leaving your how's that saying go? Your friends are the family you choose, and your family's the one that you're stuck with.
Right.
It's that that's what he's dealing with, and his older boyfriend he's beyond that. He's in his early 30s, and
right.
He doesn't have that problem anymore. He knows who he is. And that's, where he wants Matteo to be as. Know who you are. Get to that. And he finally does. Quite beautifully. The first third of the book, I was like, fuck, this is going to be some stupid cliched shit.
Right.
Before we were recording this episode, we were talking about This Is Us. I do not like shows like This Is Us because it's forced unnecessary drama, and I thought that's what we were going to be getting into with Generations, was this forced unnecessary drama, and it wasn't forced. I just thought it was going to be. That was my prejudice, that was going to be this forced shit, and it was actually very beautifully done. It starts off like a cliched kind of story,
Totally.
but then you realize it's not. It's this very humble story of just a small little family, just dealing with problems in life, and how the passing of one generation brought the next generation together.
And that's what I really like too. I think it came during the scene where you were talking about where he was looking at the family photos, and he realized, looking at all of that and knowing a little bit more about family history that he didn't know, there were other issues and other problems and other dramas he was not aware of. He thought like he was basically the center of the universe, right? Everything revolved. Who doesn't, right? When you're that age.
Yeah.
But you lose perspective that your parents, your aunts also had to deal with the same kind of bullshit and drama on their own. And you're just another kind of part of the story.
Yeah.
But there was other stories leading up to you. You weren't the only star of the story.
Yeah, now he's just a character in the baby story.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
He's going to be the crazy
Good point.
uncle.
Good
Like,
point.
just like-
The crazy great uncle. Nobody really talks about it. The other thing, too, what I really liked about this story, in my Catholic perspective, was...
The homophobia.
No, it was... At the end of the day, what matters in your life is your family. It doesn't matter about your job. Doesn't matter about your career. It doesn't matter if you don't make it, quote unquote, like what the success that you think you're supposed to be. At the end of the day, it matters about your family, love and support, and like supporting the next generation, and like what you give to your family to make them better. Like, and I thought that was an important after school special.
That was beautiful.
No, and I totally
Yeah.
agree. The montage scene after the niece is born, rang true to me too, because that was a good perspective. That's how I felt when my kid was born. There was this moment where I'm where my dad was, in terms of dealing with the next generation, and
you will be.
yeah.
At the end of your life, you're going to be where your dad was.
Exactly.
Your daughter and son are going to have to.
So it's a mind trip, like you were
Yeah.
saying, Johnny, where it's just like, God, you get this perspective where it's like you're halfway through your life, you realize you're going to be treading the same trail that your parents went, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very interesting.
It's weird since my previous relationship ended and I was in my late 30s to now, I cry way more fucking often over shit because I don't know, it just like it hits me so much harder and I don't know what it is. I just find things to be more precious and just like worthy of feeling something for it. And it just like things that like I'll just be like I work in animal care and regulation.
God's work.
And these animals come in and I deal with these situations with their owners when they're having to say goodbye, and it just like I have to go to my desk and cry every single fucking time because I'm just like, life is so fucking precious. It's so rare that like one of the things I've talked to my girlfriend Sasha about is think about all of the odds on us being together. Just think of all the fucking things that had to happen, all the people that had to live and not die or like avoid an illness or some horrible part of society that would have murdered this person, for being who they are. All this shit that had to happen for the happenstance, just the odd little chance for us to be be together.
Yeah, because like even if your mom chose a different guy,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be
I
you.
wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I totally
Or
get that.
if
or you'd be Jonathan.
or if I hadn't come, say I opted for Portland when I was leaving
Oh, yeah.
Washington, and had I opted for Portland instead of Sacramento, or when I did finally move to Portland, if I had not come back, like there's just all these things that would have been missed, and it just tears me up when I just see life in action and just the oddity of life.
I think Johnny's testifying right now.
Well, and I would agree with you, Johnny, too, because at our age, we've seen more than we did when we were young kids, right? I mean, we've seen friends die for various reasons.
Yeah.
Suicides, either murder or just
My
natural death.
My poor buddy Bill died from a blood clot.
Right. And so that kind of perspective kind of adds appreciation to life.
Yes.
A lot more.
Yeah, definitely does. And this was a beautiful, beautiful fucking book, and I definitely recommend it.
So one thing I'm kind of disappointed in is I tried to look her up. I was like, oh, like she's pretty interesting. I want to see like her other 3 books. Everything's in Italian.
Yeah,
like,
I did that.
You can't find out information about her. But because I liked it enough. I thought it was so beautiful and so poignant, and I thought it hit home. And I understand now, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all. The homosexuality, it didn't matter for this book. That's not what it was about. This really wasn't about a guy and his dad. That was just kind of like the plot twist. Like, it was just like part of the plot. This is about a kid who's trying to connect with his family, and like we all do. Like, you leave your family, but then you come back to your family.
Right.
Like,
I totally thought much like you.
Girl. Yeah, it could have been a girl. Could have been anybody. It could have been, and again, like, she's a woman who's writing this, and I thought she did it so well. Like, I never once thought like, oh, a guy would never say that, or a guy would never do that. And I really wish I had like more of her works to read in English, because I just thought it was so beautifully done. And the artwork too. Like, it's all black and white, and is it ink or pencil?
Yeah, I think it's done on a computer. It doesn't.
That makes
look
more
like,
sense.
It doesn't look like traditional pen and ink. It looks like it's done in that.
But like,
manner,
even Auntie C always has resting bitch face, always, and I'm like, that is just so.
Even when she's a kid, when they show her like
Auntie
when they
B.
go to the beach,
Auntie B,
and
yeah.
she's just all in the background, like with her like sour puss face. One thing that I've been thinking about this as we've been discussing this episode is the cover illustrations are from the funeral progression behind the hearse, and he never wears the "Leave Britney Alone" shirt in throughout the book, and I'm like, why did they choose that for the cover where he's like almost
Defiant.
not defiant, like ignorant
Right.
of the of what is going on. It doesn't, but then I think, okay, well, that's him. He's trying to get to where everybody else is.
Well, see, and I was wondering because I started thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, this shirt really has nothing to do with the book. I was like, maybe they did that just for the American release.
Yeah,
To like hit with because that was a very popular YouTuber back like 10 years ago.
Right.
Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. So this was the guy. He in his whole video was "Leave Britney Alone."
He was crying.
He was a LGBT transgender guy or woman. And yeah, he was just so pent up. So when I saw that shirt, I thought it was more a reflection of that and that generation. And it does say generations, and just like,
It seemed kind of weird though. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, just time period wise, if you want to look at that, it was weird because he clearly had a smartphone. Smartphones came in around
2007.
2007.
I was living in Portland when they came
right,
out.
but he looked like he had a better thing than, like, I don't know, iPhones or anything like that. So it was weird because the shirt seemed to harken back to 10 years ago exactly. But the technology and everything else, well, there wasn't a lot of technology, but his smartphone seemed to be more just current. Yeah. So it was weird. I'm kind of agreeing with Francis in the sense that maybe that was like a weird marketing thing.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Well, and then I mean, initially at first blush, you're thinking, okay, this is going to be one of those. Dad realizes that his belief system, hating gays, is wrong, and he needs to come and accept the fact that he loves his son. And it was like, okay, this is going to be a tired trope, but
it really wasn't at all.
And kind of found out like the dad never just accepted his son.
Yeah. It was all in the kid's head.
Yeah.
Right.
But
and I will say too, and I hate to do this, and I have evidence. So now, like, through my boyfriend, I have a little boy in my life. He's 12, and my mother's like, one day when you're a parent, you understand. I was like, I'm never having kids, so I don't care. But just this past month, I was like, oh my God, I used to do this to my mom. I was like, I get it. Like, I kind of get it. I get, like, she was very impatient, but I understand why now. I'm not excusing it, but it's and so it was interesting to like read this at this age.
Right.
When I was 20, I'd probably relate more to the guy, I think, but now I'm like relating more to like the supporting characters.
for sure.
Yeah, and it kind of made me like, and after reading this, I was like, oh, I should call my mom. Like, I know it's gonna be dreadful, and but I should. But
well, Flavia, you're bringing families together.
I think that's the thing that was different. I mean, I liked Everything is Flammable. I know you guys didn't like it. Check out that episode on iTunes. But I think what was different was Matteo. Well, the character from Everything is Flammable was successful. She had money, but she was kind of stuck in this rut where you felt actual progression from Matteo. I mean, he was
That's a good point.
He was actually worse than her. She had a career and she was making money. He was worse than her, but you actually felt momentum.
Yeah.
From
he chose to move.
He
chose to grow.
So even though she was more successful and such, you felt like she wasn't really moving. Whereas Matteo, you were rooting for him to kind of mature, especially for us being at our age. You're like, I don't remember how to be that dumb, and thinking that like all you needed was love, and you could just bum around, and you didn't need a job. Who fucking wants a job?
Well, he had all the time in the world.
And he wasn't like the cliche guy, like, okay, I'll just stay here and be your at-home boyfriend again. Like
Right.
he is like, no, I have more responsibility now. I need to honor that. The other thing I want to say, if that's okay,
Of course.
this was a good reminder for me personally in this day and age. I'm reviewing everything before I buy anything. I'm checking out Yelp reviews before I go to a restaurant. I'm, I have to know before I go. This was just me wandering in the comic store. I saw a cover. I read the back cover. I was like, it looks interesting. $15. It's not a huge investment. I'll commit to it. Like I can do it. And I think that reminded me too.
To be adventurous.
No. Well, yeah, that. But yeah, that. And also, like, it's one of my love of comic books, the graphic novels.
Right.
You can buy some for like $5. You can get them at the library. And also, like, this took me 1 hour to read. It was an easy read for me. And it's cheap. So even if you don't love it, right, it's not like, oh, I wasted all this money or I spent like hours and hours reading it. But what you're saying too, like, yeah, be more adventurous, be more open, and maybe just pick something that you wouldn't normally read or that just looks different because you don't know, like you might like it. Like I found things throughout this podcast that I never thought I would like, and I do. And I've read some really great things, and I've read some really terrible things. Yeah, I mean,
I need to start doing that again.
Yeah, like I just browsed the book, and I haven't done. Like we're all busy, we're all doing things. Like even with when we did My Favorite Thing Is Monsters. Dennis had the book first, so I kind of looked it up, and I didn't want to read too much about it. But that's when I found out it was like a lot of pages, and I was already turned off by it, right? Because I'd already
so much shit to do. I can't read that big book.
Right.
I'd already built up this perception, and this was a good reminder for me. Like, there's all these beautiful gems out there, whether it's at the comic book store, it's outside, it's a different coffee house. I don't know.
That really resonates with me, Francis, what you said, because I mean, if on first blush at this comic, I don't know the publisher, I don't know the author.
Yeah.
The story looks like I said, it looked like a stereotypical dad realizes he loves his son over his stupid religious beliefs. And so I was like, this all seems boring and stupid, and I don't know what this is. And it turned out like it resonated, obviously, with me quite a bit, especially at the tail end. And like Johnny said, it's that joy of discovery I haven't had for a while. Sometimes you run across it, like maybe like I've done it a few times on Netflix where it's like, I don't even really read what it's about. It's like, this looks like a crazy cover, and I'll just hit play because I'm bored. And it's like, this is an amazing movie. And it's nice to not have any preconceptions about anything. You don't know the plot. You don't know the genre. You just kind of like, it looks sort of interesting. They have a kind of cool name. I'm just going to just dive in.
Cool. Well, Francis, where can people follow you on the old social medias?
I'm on Insta at Words and Waffles, and I apologize if I slurred a lot.
This was our drunk episode.
Yeah. You can find the official Instagram and Twitter handle of Graphic Novel Explorers Club at GN Explorers Club.
And I'm on Serious Talk Twit on Twitter. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
You get the chance. I think we all recommend this book.
Highly recommend the book.
Yes.
This is my favorite book of this season
Winning.
so far.
I wouldn't say that, but I really liked it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye.
We hope you'll join us next week as we discuss Happy by Grant Morrison.